Hi everyone, Kelly Bear here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be doing an in-depth review, and as you will see from the title and of course from what is in front of you, that is going to be a review of the Sasuraibito Tarot. The last time I did any in-depth reviews was back in 2018. I made about 3 or 4 in-depth review videos and then just sort of fell off that wagon. And this is not me saying I'm getting back on that wagon necessarily. I just really wanted to talk about one of my favourite decks in a bit more depth. I think sometimes that information can be useful or just interesting for people, whether you have the deck or not, whether you may be thinking about getting the deck or not, or maybe you own it and you're thinking of getting rid of it because it hasn't jived with you so far. Maybe this will help sort of sway you. I don't know. It's just there should you wish to imbibe such information. So I'll just give you a little breakdown of how this review is going to be structured, and I will be putting timestamps in the description box down below, so that you can sort of skip to the bits that you're most interested in. You may be interested in the entire video, or you may be just interested in 1 or 2 bits, and either way, you know, I don't mind, you do you. So yeah, what I'll do at first is I will go over all of the sort of specifications and the sort of details about the printing and the cardstock and the dimensions and all that kind of stuff with regards to the sort of the original size, as was standard sized, and then I'll also do it for the tiny traveller, because you may be interested in one over the other, so I'll sort of try to keep those separate. And then what I will do is I will give you a little look at, you know, some of my favourite cards, my least favourite cards, notable things about the deck, that kind of thing. Then I will look at the guidebook with you. I'll sort of give you the sort of basic information, details about the guidebook, and then we'll have a little look inside and see what sort of information that you get. And then I will go into the sort of readability of the deck, how I think it might work for beginners or not, how it shuffles, that kind of thing, the kind of vibe that I get from it. I will then do a little sort of 9-card layout, you know, sort of 9-card box spread layout, a bit like what Tom Benjamin, or very much like what Tom Benjamin does with his videos when he does reviews, just so you can see what the cards look like in a sort of demo spread. I won't be reading the cards because this will get sort of very long indeed if I do that as well. I'll also make sure that I'll give information about where you can buy this deck. And finally, at the very end, I will also do a flip through without any commentary of the standard sized and the tiny traveller side by side, so you get to see. So, you know, I've got my little pen here to scratch off my notes as I go. Yeah, just so you can see them side by side in case that's something that you're interested in. Yeah, and then that will be that. And I would also be really interested in any feedback about the structure of the video, whether it made sense. I tried to do it in a way that made sense. I was going by the 2018 reviews that I did as a sort of framework, and then sort of jiggling it about a little bit. But I'm open to sort of feedback with how it sort of flows as a review for folks. So yeah, without any further ado, as people tend to say, let's get on with the show. Okay, so I might have to move this light depending on how it's looking on the cardstock once I take the cards out of the box, but we shall see. So, as I've said, the title of this tarot deck is the Sasuraibito Tarot. I have the 2nd printing. It is now on its 9th. And it has affectionately been nicknamed the Stasia Burrington Tarot. Now, I can't quite remember who it was that nicknamed it. I do want to say Kelly Fitzgerald at The Truth in Story, because I do remember her calling it that, but I don't know if she was mentioning someone else calling it that in that video, or in the, you know, in the videos where she talked about this deck or worked with this deck, or if it was Kelly herself. The artist of this deck is Stasia Burrington, and they are a Japanese American artist, and they are based in the SeaTac area of Washington State. It was originally a Kickstarter. It's an indie deck, and it still is an independently produced deck. It's remained indie. I believe the Kickstarter was launched in 2017, but I'm not 100% sure from that. I bought this copy in, I think it was February of 2018, and I got my copy from Beth Maiden's shop, Little Red Tarot, here in the UK. The pricing wise for this standard version is currently £60 or 75 US dollars. And it comes in a sturdy 2-part box. I believe that the current 9th printings, you know, from what my research is, you know, looking on the websites and the Etsy shop and stuff, is that it does still come in a 2-part tuck box. The tuck box, when I first got mine, was really, really stiff, and this was something that people mentioned. But it's fine now. It's just holds enough to keep it closed. It doesn't sort of just slide off easily, but in, like, you know, it doesn't just come flying off, which would be no good. And here you go. You can see it says printing 2. It's got this lovely artwork on the inside. I mean, it does have the handy thumb handy thumb holes, which I think are pretty important when you've got a 2-part box like this. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. You see, now because mine is, oh, there's one of my own hairs there. Because it is a 2nd edition, it's still in the shiny, shiny, glossy cardstock, and that has changed, and that's something you'll see when I show the Tiny Traveller. I believe the Tiny Traveller is the same cardstock as the larger version. They're both in the same. Please do correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's, looking at, again, my research, it looks like it was, oh, I'm jiggling the camera, it looked like that they were the same. Mine, because it is, again, because it's the 2nd edition, my guidebook came separately. Again, it is very glossy. So any printing that you get, well, not any printing, any like current version, and I can't remember when it was, it might have been from the 3rd or 4th printing, I'm not quite sure. Stasia listened to feedback, thankfully, and made it so that the guidebook would fit in the box with the deck, which makes sense, right? It does sort of irritate me somewhat that this is separate and doesn't sort of fit in with the box, but it's not the end of the world, because again, my eyes are not great, so the print is at least readable for me. In some decks, guidebooks, that's not always the case. It can be a little bit more tricky for my middle-aged eyes to see. So dimensions wise of the standard, let's just show you again, we'll just show you the inside there. There is a moth, and it has law, lust, lost, love. Isn't that lovely? The whole packaging is really lovely. So yeah, the dimensions of the deck itself, for the standard one, I'm hoping this is the same size as the sorry, tell a lie, I did check it against the Etsy shop listings for the current, you know, printings. So the width is 7 centimeters or 2.75 inches. The length is 12 centimeters or 7.5 inches, and the depth is 3 centimeters or 1.2 centimeters, 1.2 inches, beg your pardon. If this looks weird because it's coming away from it, it's because I've separated off some cards to show you. And yes, my version does have the riffler's bow in it, so it's got a little thing into it because I'm a riffle shuffler. As I said, the cardstock to my edition is different to the current version. It's now, mine is sort of glossy and shiny. It feels really strong, but flexible enough to riffle shuffle really easily. And I've had this deck for over 6 years at this point, and you know, it's probably also sort of broken in somewhat, hence the riffle shuffler's bow there. It's now on a 330 GSM smooth cardstock, and apparently it's, you know, it's still quite sturdy, and it has a matte UV finish. And I checked the Tiny Traveller, it is the same. And as you can see here, mine has a gold foil edging. It's a shiny gold foil edging, not a matte or a sparkly one. And the current editions also have the gold edging. Now, as I said, this is like a really well-used deck for me, and I ruffle shuffle it. And I'm very clumsy with overhand shuffling, so you can see, I don't know if you can really see, the wear, there's a little sort of wear away at the corners of the gilding, where there's like little white lines on each of the very outer edges of each corner where it's worn. I don't even know if it's really showing up very well on the camera. And there's the odd like little chipped, worn away ding where I've sort of, you know, when you're overhand shuffling and you sort of smack the cards against each other. I'm not going to do that right now because I have put the cards in order for the walkthrough. But yeah, it's very shiny, but I will say that at least my version, it's really held up well, the gilding. The system, let's talk about the system. This is loosely based on the Rider-Waite-Smith system, which is of course based within the Golden Dawn system. It is, according to Stasia Burrington's website, also inspired by sort of contemporary living in the Western world, as well as sort of Japanese and Buddhist concepts and ideals, and it does also say that in the book. Stasia Burrington said that the way that they named this deck is that Sasuraibito most closely translates to wanderer. So I believe there is a quote at the beginning. Here we go. So here you see the Japanese word Sasuraibito most closely translates to wanderer. It's an older literary term that is falling out of use, meant to describe a person ever seeking, searching for a place of healing and refuge. This deck is designed to accompany the curious, wandering querent. Isn't that just lovely? So that's how it came about its name. And I'd say the art style, the medium of this deck, it looks like it's watercolor. I mean, this looks like watercolor paper background, but then not so much on, it looks like it's been placed onto a different background on here, but some of them do look like they've got the texture of watercolor paper. I don't know if it's some other mediums or some gouache, I don't know. It gives me watercolor vibes, and maybe with some like ink work, some line work with ink. But don't quote me on that, I'm just sort of taking a stab at it. And if you want to have a little look at the backs, you can see that they have this gorgeous dark brown to almost black, and then there's this sort of burgundy reddish brown in the middle. Gorgeous death heads, moths, bones, seeds. I can never work out if these are seeds or leaves. And then there's sort of like a black abyss or this obsidian mirror maybe in the middle. I'm not quite sure, but it is reversible. And as I said with the artwork, and you will see as I start to show you some of the cards, that it has a very definite sort of Japanese art style influence, sort of contemporary Japanese art style influence especially, which makes sense given the creator's heritage. So I'm just going to switch over to the Tiny Traveller, and if you're not interested in seeing the Tiny Traveller and you want to look at some cards and hear about how the deck reads, you can skip this little bit and let's go straight to that bit. So here we are with the Tiny Traveller. Now the Tiny Traveller, which as you may have guessed is the pocket-sized version, this one comes in a tuck box, which is much more, I guess it's much more lightweight and travel friendly. I am actually planning on making a pouch, one of my pouches for this, because I don't want it to get dinged up. I usually don't store them in their tuck boxes in the pouches, but some decks you can get them in with their boxes as well. I just don't want to have to be dealing with cardboard that can be smooshy and stuff and things. But yeah, you've got the foil, you've still got the foil details like you get on the hard two-part box. So here you're going to get a look at, oh, there's one of the cards missing. Here you're going to get a look at the cardstock that the current printings are in. I originally thought it was going to be, you know, like a classic linen cardstock, because I could see from pictures that it had this sort of texture to it, but it's a very different texture to sort of a classic linen. It's almost like little, I don't know, like little scales almost, or little dots. Can you see if I get that really up close for you? It's far less glossy. It's not matte. It does, as you can see under the light, have a bit of a shine to it, but it's by no means glossy at all. Like if I show you the difference between, like, it's a real difference. The thing I will say is, because this is glossy, the colours do come up more vibrant, but it's really difficult to film videos or take photos if you're someone that wants to use the deck for like video readings for clients, or you take a lot of really beautiful pictures for Instagram, or you take photos for your clients. It can be a little trickier to do that without getting some glare on them. This one is gonna, you know, it's gonna be a little easier on that front, or with the newer printing, I mean. So yeah, unless you're buying an older version, you're not going to have to worry about this. I should be very clear. You know, any current version you get will be in this cardstock. So I'm just saying, for people who might pick up a second-hand version, an older printing, just to be aware of what cardstock you're getting. With regards to this one, it doesn't come with a guidebook. You can see here it comes with a little fold out pamphlet, and it's, you know, it's not massive, but you get sort of a breakdown of the majors, just a few keywords, and then on the back you just, it's the same again for each suit. You get just a few little keywords, basic sort of Smith-Waite-esque keywords. But you know, it's a tiny travel, and you know, it's a good little like prompt. I think it's a good little jumping off prompt, just to jog your memory if you're already like au fait with the system. I'd say if this is your first deck and you don't know the system yet, this isn't going to be enough to go off if you get like the small version as your first deck. The dimensions of this one, it is 5.7 centimeters in width here, and that is 2.2 inches. The length is 10 centimeters this way, and that is 3.9 inches, and the depth is about 2.5 centimeters, and that's coming in at around an inch in thickness. So as you can see here, also it has a black edging. I have done that. That's me. I used actually I've got it right here, that's quite handy. I just have a Winsor Newton Pro marker in black. The very edges, the backs aren't actually black. The front borders are black, but the back very edges are like a really bitter black coffee brown, but I wanted to sort of, I felt like the black would work because it's dark enough to be black, and actually the front borders are black. I do enjoy a black border, actually. I feel like we still don't get enough sort of black borders. They can really show the artwork. I guess it depends on the artwork, but it really works with this. As I said, the cardstock is the same as the current large versions, and that's for now all the information. You know, the back's the same, I should say. All the information that you'll need regarding the Tiny Traveller, and you'll see this little fella again when I do the silent flip through of all the cards. So now I'm gonna get in and talk about the cards themselves. Finally, huh? So apologies, I have had to move the light again. So if you keep seeing the light quality of the light changing, it is because where I had it previously for the small one, it was just way too shiny. So I've just had to move it so it's not bouncing off of the front of these all the time. I can't reiterate enough though, my version is an old cardstock version. The new versions are not shiny like this. So first I'm going to talk about my favourite cards. Then I'm going to talk about my least favourite cards. And then I'm going to talk about some notable notable, should I say, notable things about this deck that I either particularly like or don't like. And yeah, we will go on to the guidebook after that. So there are loads of cards in this deck that I love, but I narrowed it down to 3, and so those are the Emperor. Let me see, are we getting enough light? It's so tricky with this. See what I mean with this cardstock? It makes things difficult. But in my head, I call this the Don Draper card. And it's just a really interesting take on the Emperor. It's very moody. It's very sort of, there's also sort of this seductiveness about it. You don't know if you can see if it's coming up, but the character seems to have some stubble, some 5 o'clock shadow. So they might have been burning the midnight oil. They're smoking. It just feels very, I don't know, like I said, it's giving me Mad Men vibes. And as the Emperor, it's not so in your face, like it's not necessarily in your face negative. It can be someone burning the midnight oil for like good. It doesn't have to be, you know, the Emperor gets a bad rap, but I think we have to remember that to think about the cards coming from a neutral place, and then, you know, your question and the cards surrounding it, and if you're using a positional spread, those are all going to help flavour which way the card is leaning. So I do like that this is, because there are some cards in decks, and including this deck, where a card will be skewed either like super positive or super negative, which can be an issue for me sometimes with situational and scenic pip cards, which is why I bang on about Marseille and pip decks so much, because you don't get any of that. So yeah, that's one of my faves. Another one of my faves is, oh my god, his little face. This is the King of Cups. I love him. Look at his wee face. He is pouring what looks like to be some very lovely dark coffee into this, I imagine, sort of starry mug. I have a mug very much like this, a hand-thrown dark blue, sort of lightly white mottled mug. So I'm like, I imagine that he is pouring some coffee into my mug for me, and he's going to hand it to me, and we're going to sit down and we're going to have a lovely conversation. But I just... oh, there's just something so engaging. Look at his eyes, and I just love him. I just love him. So that's another favourite of mine. And then the third card that I picked as a favourite is the 8 of Cups. This is a really interesting way to depict sort of moving on from a situation. You know, it's quite a well-known trope, you know, having a haircut or dyeing your hair or doing something drastic with your hair as a sort of either just to sort of really change things up, or to, you know, represent a significant change in your life. And I've definitely been that person to, I mean, I've done loads of my hair over the years. The photos I have of all the hairstyles and hair colours over the last 20 years, not so much the last few years, but definitely before 2019 maybe, I did all sorts of my hair. And so this is very relatable to me on a personal level, this sort of cutting off all your hair. You know what? A couple, like 6-7 weeks ago, I cut 8 inches off my hair, and my hair is just still too long and like to the middle of my back, past the middle of my back even. 8 inches! That tells you how long it had grown. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some of my least favourite cards, and it's not because I don't like the artwork, it's just because I find them maybe a little... you know, they're just not as lovely as for me, as all the artwork is lovely. I like the artwork. They're just not as evocative for me, or they don't speak to me necessarily in a way that they might speak to others. I don't know. So the first one is the Star, and it's because it kind of confuses me as a star card. It's a person floating around in space. They are tethered, but we can't see what they're tethered to. There's some kind of, I don't know, nebula in the background, maybe a potential portal opening up. It's kind of a little frightening. It's giving Gravity, the film Gravity. I've not seen that, but I do know what it's about. And I've seen clips of it, and I saw enough clips of it to know that I couldn't watch it because it was going to like freak me out and give me like my claustrophobia. Like, no. So, but yeah, I just don't get this meaning of the star from this. So while I like the artwork, I don't pick up what it's putting down. And even in the guidebook, it's sort of, it doesn't necessarily, so let me just actually, let's just hold on a second here. I thought it would make more sense for me to just find the entry and read it for you, because I can see what Stasia Burrington was going for here. So I'll read it out. The star, and then there's a couple of little like sort of archetypes or sort of title, alternative titles, almost like the astronomer, the navigator, the explorer. The star is full of hope, joy, light-heartedness, and free-flowing love. Right? So far, so star. Oh, that rhymes. It is optimistic, trusting, excited, and inspired. The explorer is open-minded, serene, and generous. So for me, because I don't know, I grew up watching like Alien and Aliens and like no, in space no one can hear you scream, and like the whole, like I said, the aforementioned like Gravity thing with Sandra Bullock. This does not give me serene and adventure. This gives me claustrophobia and terror. So for me personally, this is a star card. It's giving nope. But again, you know, your mileage may vary on that. This might be like, you might be really vibing with Stasia's interpretation of this card, and that is also cool, because different strokes for different folks, right? Another card that I sort of struggle with, I mean, she looks so cozy. I'm like, that looks so cozy in that blanket. I want to get snuggled, especially if this turns up in like, you know, on a cold wintry day and you want to be all warm and cozy. But it's, again, it's one of those where I'm like, judgment, and I find it doesn't. So it says this card is commonly illustrated with an angel blowing a trumpet and delivering judgment onto those below. I chose to paint a woman emerging from a pile of blankets like an insect out of a cocoon. She is the master and judge of her own transformation. So like, I get that, I get what she's trying to do. Stasia Burrington, they are, sorry, I should confirm they use she, they pronouns, so I'm trying to use both. She says that, you know, they're emerging, this character is emerging from a cocoon. But for me, I'm just like, I just see myself being cozy on a cold winter day, and I'm like, I need a hot water bottle and some fluffy socks and a cup of hot chocolate or a tea. It doesn't give judgment to me. But I understand that concept of like self-judgment or like being your own, I don't know. It just doesn't strike in the way that it doesn't feel like a judgment card. But again, like I said, I understand the approach. And finally, it's just the King of Pentacles. And it's because as all the court cards in this deck are amazing. And the King of Pentacles is one of my, like, I just really love the Pence just overall, and including the courts of the Pentacles. And I just, courts and wand, the Pence and the wands. But this feels and this is like the artwork is fine. It just feels very simple, and I know that's like, we've got this silhouette, and I understand the interpretation of this king and it being, you know, he's surveying everything and he's at the top and he's got this strong stance. Like I get it, but when I compare it to the other court cards that are in the deck, it feels like lacking. So do you know what I mean? And I will actually be showing you some other court cards, so you will get to see what I mean actually. So I want to talk about another sorry, that's my least favorite cards. I'm losing where I am in my notes, please forgive me. This is something I'm terrible at following notes. I always end up missing something despite like ticking stuff off as I go along. It's terrible. Just needed a little sip of water. So, okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is notable things about this deck. And that could be things that I enjoy about it and things that I don't necessarily enjoy about it. So for me, one of the most notable things about this deck is the age representation. And by that, I mean, we're seeing older people. That really makes me happy. So if I just go back to one of the cards that I shared with you before, which is the King of Cups, obviously an older gentleman. Another one I nearly picked, so this card, I nearly picked a different card over it, and it was actually another, this is a depiction of an older person, and it is the Fool. And this is a really dividing card for people. I find people really either love this card or they just dang hate it. I personally love it. It's filled with childlike wonder, and I love that this guy could be like in his mid-90s and he hasn't lost that childlike wonder. Not childish, childlike, there is a difference. He is having a great time. He is dancing naked among the blossoms, and I just feel like, isn't that just, I don't know, it makes me think of a quote from the Muppets Christmas Carol, where one of the characters is dancing at the Fozziwig Christmas party, and they're like, "You're a dancing fool." It's Stadler and Waldorf, isn't it? You're a dancing fool. This is the dancing fool. And another beautiful depiction of age representation here is the Queen of Cups. Oh, I mean, this two as a pair. It's so nice to see older people, especially in the court cards, because we get some like really hot young kings and queens. And yes, historically, there have been literal children and teenagers coming to the throne, but they will usually be like a regent that is like handling shit until they're old enough, you know. These people can handle their own stuff, right? And I like, look, oh, and she's like holding this bowl of like cosmos, the cosmos behind her and the cosmos in the bowl. Oh, it just gets me in the feels. So I really love the age representation in here, because that's not something you see enough of, in my personal opinion. Another thing I really enjoy is sort of the faces. The faces are very warm, and as I've just shown you here, we have, you know, warm faces. We've got some younger faces here as well. There's just something really, I don't know, like, look at him. That little slight, like, little smile there. The sweat coming off his brow. But he's sort of, he's tired, but he seems content. And he's got this wry smile. And she looks calm. Or they look calm and content. Oh, the faces have this warmth about them. And there's loads of examples I could have shown you of these beautiful, warm faces. So I really enjoy the faces in here. I've noticed that there are some pippish cards, which again I am absolutely cool with, but it's mostly the suit of wands. I pulled out just two of the wand cards to give you an idea. So here we have the Four of Wands. I should probably swap those around, shouldn't I, really? Where we have, I mean, again, it makes sense, right? You've got the Four, where we think of four as stable and structure. They're, you know, we've even got these being joined at the top and the bottom, almost making a cube. So you're getting that structure, that stability. And then here we have, again, that idea of the Nine of Wands. In the Smith-Waite, you would have the person standing and they have the bandage around their head. So that's like that last push, that kind of battle-weary warrior. Where here we have a splint on a bone. And this red thread going off here, and the remaining 8 wands around, and they almost feel like they're sort of protecting this one splinted bone. And as we know, oftentimes when something is broken and heals, it heals stronger. And I just really like that interpretation. But yeah, a lot of the wands in this deck, and you'll see if you do watch the walkthrough, that you'll see they're very, very pippish. Very pippish. Another thing that I've noticed about this deck is there's some really lovely kind of like moody, mardy cards, and it's not necessarily that they're like depressing or sad. They just have this sort of blue cast to them, and some of them are moody and sort of mardy, and some of them just have this lovely sort of blue tinge to them, which feels very sort of cooling, and I don't know, there's just something really lovely. So I picked another 2 examples. So one of them is this lovers, really different depiction of the lovers. You've got this like dark clouds on this side, but it also almost makes me think of the Lenormand, because you have lighter clouds and also possibly, see, this side is sort of, we have light on the characters. It feels very like there's sun coming in and the lighter clouds are coming in, which it like makes me think of the Lenormand clouds card, where if you're getting a good Lenormand, you'll get like one side of the clouds is dark and one is light, and it sort of helps you with directionality, with what other cards are surrounding it and where things are clearing and where things are sort of troublesome or confused. So yeah, I just really enjoy this depiction of these lovers, this intertwining. Again, we've got this red, you get a little red thread. And I really love this Knight of Cups. This reminds me of someone that I know. It literally looks like someone I know. Their whole demeanor, their hair literally reminds me of someone I know that I really like. And yeah, a friend of mine. And this is in my head. This is just makes me think of this friend. But like it's moody, but like in a sort of a really calm, soothing way. Again, with the cups of tea. I'm loving all the like cups of tea. So yeah, there's this sort of blue cast moodiness to some of the decks. And another thing I've noticed is some really interesting interpretations of the cards. So as I have already shown, I really enjoyed, you know, the interpretation of the Six of Cups. Very interesting, different take, very different from the Smith-Waite. You know, the like I said, the Emperor, and even the ones that I you know, where Stasia Burrington has the artist has sort of gone off piste with these, where with these whilst I you know, I don't necessarily find they necessarily work for me completely. I do understand where the artist is coming from, and I do appreciate the different take. It is nice to have a deck that isn't just a straight up Smith-Waite sort of redrawing, but in their own artwork. And they do have one, which is Stasia Burrington, I should say. They do have a straight up Smith-Waite, which they did in collaboration for Robin Valentine's tarot magic book. So if you like Stasia Burrington's artwork, but you would like a straight up Smith-Waite, that's one that you could pick up. I'll try to remember to write that at the bottom. I will see. Let me note other sorry, other deck. See if I can remember to put the list in case you want to see like just a straight up Smith-Waite. So yeah, and a couple of others that I actually picked out was the Six of Pentacles. This is one of those cards again that is really Marmite for people. They either love it or they hate it. I love it, but I can see why people would be maybe a little squicked out by the whole, like, you know, it looks like it's spit. It's not spit. It's this exchange, right? And I like that it doesn't give this whole, you know, a lot of the time in the Smith-Waite, you're getting this idea of charity, but it's like what someone deigns to give you, like they're just sort of meting it out, and like that is one interpretation. That's the thing. This is, you know, with a scenic or situation or a narrative pip card, you're always going to get kind of locked in to an interpretation of that card. And this is just a different interpretation, which is the equal and balanced exchange of resources, ideas, money, whatever it is, right? Money, energy. This gets that across quite nicely. I feel like it's actually more of a neutral depiction of the Six of Pentacles, which I really like. And then here I have the Six of Cups, and I just think this is quite fascinating. So we have this, you know, we think of this as the nostalgia card. We see those characters in the garden. There's all those cups of flowers, and here we don't actually have any cups depicted. So, you know, there's just be mindful of that not all the cards have all of the literal depictions of the suit's icon. We do have this young character looking up in awe at the beauty of the butterflies and the flowers, but it's also about sort of this beauty and growth within them. And so it's a slightly different take, but I find it quite interesting. It's not just going on this sort of nostalgia thing, which is, there's nothing wrong with that either. But again, it's just having a different take. And I do love that you just get this butterfly landing gently on the fingertips of this young person here. So yeah, there's some really interesting takes. Other things that I have noticed about this deck, notable things, is there's a good amount of sort of you know, skin tones. There's some larger bodies. Again, from the walk where you see like the world card as a larger body. I'm noticing that people tend to do the draw the world card as a larger body a lot of the time, and I think that's because people think of the world in abundance, and there's this idea that like people, you know, there can be some like problematic connotations there sometimes, I think, with regards to what people think about larger bodies. As someone who has inhabited you know, a larger body at times and sometimes a much smaller body at times, I've been subject to the way that people treat you differently depending on literally the amount of space that you take up. It's yeah, there's that. So I will say I've not really noticed any disability like over, and I don't know if I've just missed it, but I've had this deck a long time and I've not really picked up on any of that. So that's the one thing I would say I've not seen, but it does have a lot of representation otherwise. Just gonna have another little sip, excuse me. Oh, it's just, we're 40 minutes in now, so I'm getting a little dry of throat. So now we're gonna have a look at the guidebook. Oh, that rhymes again. So I always say that. It's because it tickles my brain when things rhyme, because I like to rhyme things for fun, just when I'm like doing stuff. I sing songs or make up rhymey things. I don't know. I think it's a neurodivergent thing. So yeah, so here we have the guidebook. Again, bear in mind, I'm just going to scooch the camera out a little bit. There we go, that's better, just so we can get a proper look at the book. So as I've said, be mindful if you are buying a contemporary current printing, the book will fit inside the 2-part box. It won't be like mine. But the information, as far as I know, will be the same. So we get 64 pages. We have a tiny little bit about the deck itself, and the little bit that I read earlier in the video about what Sasuraibito actually means and why the deck was named as such. And I'll just show you. So we have a little bit at the beginning. Oh, I'll show you we have method, which I guess, you know, is just showing you how you would read the cards very, very briefly. Obviously, major arcana, and then broken up into wands, cups, swords, and pence. So there's a very sort of very basic, like, make some space, shuffle the deck, ask a question, cut the deck, and then the reading. There's a couple of, like, you know, there's an example of a 3-card spread for you, but no actual sort of illustrations of that, which is fine, because I mean, we all know what 3 cards laid out looks like. And a little bit in closing, and then it goes into the majors. So you get these sort of almost like alternative titles or archetypes, or sometimes deities. So we have the Jester, Madman, Beggar, and Sasuraibito, aka the Wanderer, also for the 4. And, you know, so here we have the Empress, and we have Demeter and Freya, Emperor, the King, Boss, Dom, which I love. So you get that little bit of information, and then you get a fair little bit about the card. What I do enjoy is that Stasia talks about the artwork. They are talking about the depiction. They're not just sort of talking in broad strokes. They are explaining their interpretation, which I really enjoy, because you don't always get that in a deck or in a guidebook for a deck, especially if the author is not the artist. Sometimes there's been some decks that I've bought in the past, and it's usually mass market decks where there doesn't seem to have been any sort of communication, and the book feels like it's lacking. And one that always comes to mind is the Modern Spellcasters Tarot. I love the artwork to that, and although the suits, the elemental suits, are flipped for the swords and the wands, I could almost get past it if it wasn't for the fact that the book doesn't explain anything about the artwork in the deck, and I feel like it was a really missed opportunity, and also kind of something that was needed. But there we go. And then we get on to the minor arcana. So they have less information. That's pretty common, right? And then instead of like a archetype, we get some keywords. So you get a little bit about the wands, so fire, creativity, and then we go into, you know, Ace of Wands, beginning, creativity, adventure, and then like a reversed. So it's nice that you get a reverse. And of course, if you don't read reversals, you don't actually have to read a card, you know, coming in upside down, even though the backs are reversible. You can just read it as in shadow. So this can still come into play, because some people go, oh, well, I don't use this bit because I don't read reverse. And it's like, well, if you're doing a reading where you have a position where it's quite a sort of in a shadowy aspect of the card, then, you know, you can maybe see how this fits for size in your reading, right? So yeah, you get a fair amount of information. I do like that we also get some quotes for some of the cards. So let me see if I can find where are they for the major arcana. Not for the, sorry, I should say for the, you get quotes for the major arcana, but no, you don't get them for the minors. I wasn't very being as clear as mud here. So here you'll see for the Hanged Man, we cannot become what we want to be by remaining what we are. Max Dupree. Let's see another one. So this one is for the Sun. Life is so damn short. For fuck's sake, just do what makes you happy. Bill Murray. Although my understanding is Bill Murray is not without his problematic oh dear. But yeah, so I do like that you get the quotes. Here's one, Alan Moore. Artists use lies to tell the truth. Yes, I created a lie, but because you believed it, you found something true about yourself. Alan Moore, V for Vendetta. So yeah, I think that's quite fun. There are no, you know, we get to the end of the book and it just finishes on the King of Pentacles, and then there's a little bit about Stasia themselves and where you can find their information and what have you, and there's a little bit about the references, and there's no like there's no like spreads or anything like that, just that little prompt for the three card spread: past, present, future, current situation, obstacle, advice, where you stand now, what you aspire to, how to get there. So you do, you know, but it's very minimal, but I think it's just in interest of keeping it sort of succinct. Do let me know if you have a more recent printing, if it's the same, or if there's any additional information or spreads. That would be useful information for anyone that is watching. And then I'll try to update that information in the description box if that's the case. Yeah, so that's the book. I'm just going to show a little bit of the oh sorry, I've lost my thread of what I was thinking. I was going to show a little bit of the here. Actually, that was what I wanted to do. Beg your pardon. Losing the thread of what I wanted to say. So we'll go back to the Ace of Wands. So here we have Ace, beginning, creativity and adventure, and here we have Ace, beginning of a creative adventure. So it's kind of giving the same. Two of Wands in the book says confidence, being true to yourself, discovery, and here it says two, confidence, trust in self-discovery. So they're kind of similar, but obviously you're getting more in this. And next I'm going to talk a little bit about the readability of the deck. So that's going to be the next section. Okay, so readability wise, I would say if you are quite used to reading with, you know, Smith-Waite or very sort of Smith-Waite clone type decks, redrawing type decks, a bit like Stasia's other deck, where it's sort of a straight up redrawing pretty much of a Smith-Waite but in their art style. This might take a little bit of getting used to, but I do find that it is fairly intuitive and open. And like I said, for me saying about, you know, how like with the Star and the Judgment, I don't necessarily, this is because of my own like personal issues of like claustrophobia and like just my personal like upbringing and things like that. or my personal associations, I can still pick up what the artist is putting down via their explanation in the book, right? So like I said, they do explain their reasoning behind their artistic decisions, and I do find for the most part it is very intuitive. These lovely warm faces are very open and readable as well. I do like the deviations for the most part from the traditional sort of Smith-Waite depictions. Is it beginner friendly? Yes and no. Like it's tricky, it kind of, right? Because any deck can be beginner friendly. It just depends on, you know, where you're coming at it from and what you want to get out of tarot, right? So say, for example, like I know people that are really intense ceremonial magicians who know loads about astrology and Kabbalah and all that kind of stuff, but have never really read tarot. And so them coming to a tarot deck, they've got, you know, say if they like, they're going to have probably an easier time learning to read the Thoth tarot than me, someone who'd been reading tarot for like about 25 years by the time I picked up a Thoth deck, because they are going to be picking up all of the extra layers on a Thoth deck. Do you see what I mean? It really depends what you're getting out of it. So they would be considered a beginner, but not everyone is coming to the table with the same information. Would this, you know, whereas the Thoth, yet even if you are coming to the Thoth without any sort of esoteric or occult knowledge, if you are dedicated to learning it, it's going to be fine. Like my first deck was the Osho Zen, and now I understand where those Smith-Waite influences come into play, because I can read Smith-Waite and I understand the difference, you know, the difference. That there were different systems, which I didn't all those years ago when I got my first ever deck. I just bought what I thought was pretty from the limited number that were available for me at the time. So I got on fine with that deck, you know. I read with it for years, and that was one of the only decks I had, and it wasn't a problem. It was more tricky for me trying to learn from other guidebooks, you know, when you buy separate guidebooks, because everything had these like Smith-Waite depictions, and then eventually I was like, I'm just going to have to buy a Smith-Waite deck and just sort of hammer the traditional Smith-Waite into my head, so that, and that has really, you know, that's made it's made a difference. But I would say most decks can be a beginner deck. And you know, the most important thing I think is being attracted to the artwork, you know, being drawn to it resonating with you, and a willingness to just fucking learn and do the work, right? Just, if you're not going to learn if you're not going to do it. We learn by doing, and tarot is a doing thing. You know, you can read all the books you want, but if you are not reading, and I understand as if you're learning, that can be tricky, because people will say, well, I can only read for myself. That's valid, but I also say read for, you know, book characters, film characters, TV characters, read for, I don't know, famous people. It doesn't have to be a real reading. You can get books with practice questions, which I use. You can get practice questions online. Like, it doesn't, just learn by doing. So as long as you're willing to put the work in, I would say this is a fairly good beginner deck, but it's not going to be as beginner friendly as, say, like a straight up Smith-Waite clone if you are using like all the many tarot guidebooks or workbooks that are available, because it is going to be different. The explanation of the artwork is going to be different in the book, but you know, we do have the explanation here, so you've got this as backup. So there's that. I would say shuffle wise, mine shuffles really nicely, both overhand and riffle shuffle, and like I said before, the gilding is held up well. I'm not going to shuffle it right now because do you know what, I've just realized I should probably shuffle it now, because I know I put it all into order, but it's just yeah, I might just shuffle it and bite the bullet and reorder it all over again, just to give it now, because I feel like the order of the review is going to be weird otherwise. So here we go. So it riffles fairly well, and as you can see, it does have the bow in it. And then for overhand, I tend to overhand like this, because the cards, even for my small hands, I find I'm much more clumsy doing it this way. And I have issues with certain issue with my hand that I have to be mindful of. So it's easier for me to do it this way, overhand, for most decks, long ways upright. portrait, you know what I mean. But yeah, it does shuffle nicely. And yeah, I mean, the gilding is eventually gonna wear away, but like I said, I've had this deck for ages. I joke that it must be witchcraft because I don't understand how the gilding has held up with the amount of like, use this deck has got. And even like, I mean, you can see there's like, I don't know if you can see, there's like scratches. Come on there. Yeah, there's like a, like there's a scratch. It has dings and scratches all over it, but in me saying how this shuffles is kind of a moot point because it's no longer this cardstock that is being put out. So, you know, if you buy a new version now, it's, you know, not going to be a thing. I will say the Tiny Traveller shuffles really nicely, riffle, but I've put this one in order as well for the walkthrough. I'm not going to do that as well. I might do it right at the end of the walkthrough so you can see. And I imagine that, you know, when a smaller deck is often harder to, like a, you know, a much smaller deck is often harder to riffle shuffle because you've got less room to flex. So if this riffle shuffles really nicely, I can only imagine that the full size version in this cardstock shuffles like a dream. So there's that. And yeah, what is the vibe of this deck? What is that kind of, what is the kind of feel that I get off this deck? I would say that this deck is warm. I would say it's supportive. I would say that when I've done readings for family and friends with it, people are very receptive to it. People seem to really love that. They're like, oh, what is this deck? I've never seen this before. Because, you know, it is a contemporary deck. And it's not so contemporary that it like ages. I mean, like, it's obviously in a particular kind of art style, but it has certain sort of timeless influences. Like here we have someone in armor, you know, which harks to a certain time, but yet we have someone here in a classically sort of tailored suit. We have let's see, someone here in sort of just a straight up sort of printed button down shirt, you know, so it's a mixed bag. It doesn't feel too one way or the other, you know, which is nice. I like that we also get people that look sort of either androgynous, or you can't necessarily, there's a sort of a agenderness about some of the characters, or a non-gendered, non-binary vibe from some of the characters, which makes sense, right? Because the artist, as they use she, they pronouns, so that makes sense also. And I would say that yeah, the people are really receptive to in my head canon, this is Link. I would say people are really receptive to the older folks in these cards, in this deck. And I think that's, again, because we don't really often see, there's our faves, my 3 fave elderly cards. We don't often see that in tarot decks so much. So I think people are just really receptive to that. So what I'll do is I'll lay out 9 cards for you. I will have to move the camera out to fit them in, or I might just have to do 6 depending on how many I can get in. And then what I will do is oh, actually, I wanted to give I'll give a score out of 5 at the end of this, showing the layout of the cards, and then the flip through. I'll show you the flip through at the end. Oh, I will also have to tell you where you can get them. I'm missing all the notes at the bottom. Okay, so let me just bounce out a little bit. Okay, so I've just had a little try with, I can't get 9 in without it just getting ridiculously zoomed out, and then I'm like going to have to stand on like a footstool or something, which is, and then it's hard for me to actually reach the table because I'm so high above it. So I'm going to do 6 cards, and let's just pretend it's like for a decision spread. So one of the things that's really fun to do is if you have 2 choices to make, you can do a decision spread. Oh, there's been notes. Get them out of the way. So, you know, you want 2 different options, and you do 3 cards for option 1 and 3 cards for option 2. So option 1, I've got 6 of Swords. I love this 6 of Swords so much. I'm going to sort of just pick consciously, because I have, these are still fairly in order, and I don't want to just pull out loads of the same. So we have 3 cards for option 1. This is, again, dummy reading. Just, it's not real. It's not real. I've got an option 2. I'll try to show you some cards I've not shown yet. Let's see. Oh, that's just this is the devil card that reminds me of Lucifer, the TV show. So yeah, you can see it looks rather lovely together. I hope you can still see. It's tricky again because of the light situation on this particular copy that I have. But yeah, it reads really nicely. You know, you've got the slender black border, which does separate the artwork off a little bit, but it's not overbearing. And the other cards are all different enough that they don't, and they're not so busy that it's difficult to like look out for details and stuff. It's very sort of clear, I find, easy to pick out the information, and which, you know, the titles are very easily readable, that the font is easily readable and all that jazz. So where to buy? You can buy this from Etsy, directly from the artist, their Etsy site. You can also buy it in the UK from Little Red Tarot, Beth Maiden at Little Red Tarot. With regards to other countries, other territories, you'll have to do a little bit of a search engine search and see if there's any other indie. I don't know. I don't know if Stasia Burrington has any limits or sort of places that they don't mail decks to. I'm not sure, but you might be able to support an independent shop where you are, if like shipping is an issue. So for me, I got mine from Little Red Tarot because it made sense, right? Because the shipping was a lot cheaper. So and I do believe this is still available on Little Red Tarot. The recent editions, the recent printings rather, they're the same edition, just different printings. Those. Be wary that there are fakes of this. Please do only ever buy from the artist directly or from sort of verified stockists, and you will be able to find the stockists on Stasia Burrington's website. Again, I will also link that because you know, we don't want to support counterfeit decks, and it's not fair for the artist having their art ripped off. And also, you're getting a shit deck, right? You're getting bad quality, crappy cardstock, shit colour printing. Like, it's shit all round. So just be wary. If it seems too good to be true on the price, it very likely is. So just that's something to be aware of. So all the relevant information will be in the description box below. Like I said, I will be doing a flip through of this standard sized version and the pocket sized version. I do want to reiterate one last time that my version is glossy. Any later printings are not. They are in the same more matte cardstock of this tiny traveller. So please, if you are buying secondhand, be aware of which printing you're buying. And also, yeah, let me know what you thought of this super long in-depth review. I do feel like it was possibly a little bit rambly and a little bit chaotic, but I'm just sort of working things out with regards to the structure of them and what is relevant information and what isn't, and what people want to know and they don't. So I would really, really appreciate your feedback in the comments. Please let me know. Please be kind. There's no need to be rude. I'm doing this for free, and I spent, you know, a fair bit of my time going through this and doing the research and writing all the information out and thinking about. I've really thought about this, and you know, all of the little points that I've spoken about. I've tried to be as thorough as possible, but yeah, people will be will sometimes be a little unkind, and it's like, if you're, you know, if you have constructive criticism, that's fine, but if you're going to be rude, then maybe just scroll on. So yeah, and as I said, now it's going to go to just quiet mode. I'll probably try and pick some music, and I will, well, first of all, I need to go and put this bloody thing back in order. And then that will be a mere less than a millisecond for you, and it'll be back to doing a walkthrough of this deck. these decks side by side. So I will say goodbye now. If you want to stick around for the walkthrough, please do. If you have stuck around for the walkthrough, let me know, because that's also useful information for me with these reviews, with this review. I'm making it sound like I'm going to do a whole load of them. I don't want to promise anything, but yeah, that's useful information for me to have. And yeah, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your precious day to spend it with me, talking about this deck that I love so much. I hope that wherever you are safe and you are well, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Remember to stay for the walkthrough if that's what you're interested in. So this is ciao, maybe for some people, but not for others. So ciao, question mark.